Morning, everyone, and welcome to Traffic Safety Hotdish. Today, our topic is Every Ride Counts, the life-saving power of proper car seat, booster seat, and seatbelt use. My name is Tara Helm. I serve as the Community Programs and Occupant Protection Manager at the Minnesota Safety Council. In this role, I lead the state's Child Passenger Safety Program and the Occupant Protection Program through a grant with the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, Office of Traffic Safety. I will be the moderator and a speaker for today's session. I would like to thank our hosts, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the Minnesota Department of Health, the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, and the Minnesota Department of Transportation. Before we get into today's content, we want to make sure you're aware of a few important details. This webinar is being recorded for your reference. All attendees are currently muted, but feel free to submit questions via the chat or Q&A feature, and we'll address them at the end of the session. Professional development hours are available. You can download the form that you need off of the Minnesota TZD website, and more information and the recording will be available on the Minnesota TZD website. As I mentioned, all participants are currently muted. You can interact with the speakers and other participants via the chat box or the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. So this is the Minnesota Occupant Protection Program. Our mission is simple and powerful: to prevent serious injuries and save lives by ensuring everyone is properly buckled every trip, every time. Whether that's a seatbelt, a car seat, or a booster seat, we know that the right restraint, when used correctly, can make all the difference. Our work spans from seatbelt use, child passenger safety, education, enforcement partnerships, community outreach, and other technical support. And while our program is coordinated at the state level, it's supported regionally and locally with boots on the ground in communities across Minnesota. A big part of that local support comes from our certified child passenger safety liaisons, who are key to making sure our efforts are connected across the state, that they're relevant and accessible. The liaisons work directly with caregivers, schools, public health agencies, law enforcement, and other technicians to promote proper use and safe transportation for kids and families. We also have trained child passenger safety technicians across the state to help with our work too. And I'd like to briefly introduce our 4 child passenger safety liaisons: Jasmine, Randy, Sheila, and Shawnette. Each of them bring deep expertise and heart to this work, and I'm thankful for their leadership in our regions. Now I'll hand it over to them for a quick introduction.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Wangan. I cover Northwest Minnesota. We are currently actually in Ithaca County doing a car seat technician training to get some new techs in the area.
My name is Randy Smith. I am your Northeast Child Passenger Safety Liaison. I am based out of the Brand Police Department, which is in Isanti County.
Good morning. My name is Sheila Denton, and I am the Southern Minnesota Liaison for Child Passenger Safety. I too am currently at the Lower Sioux, and we are also doing a car seat technician course.
Hi there, I'm Shawnette Micko. I'm the hospital support liaison. I'm housed out of Regents Hospital in St. Paul. I love working with the other liaisons within the state and can support in the greater metro area, as well as with any hospital or clinical based program needs that you may have.
All right, thank you, Jasmine, Randy, Sheila, and Shawnette for introducing yourselves. You each play an important role in making our program successful, and I'm grateful for the partnership and the work that you do across the state. Okay, so I'll be sharing more about our occupant protection program in the state and resources available and other updates, but now I'd like to take a moment to introduce 2 very important people who've helped make today's session possible. First, Marissa Wall, who is a certified child passenger safety technician with Sanford Health. Marissa reached out to us to share Jennifer's powerful story and has been a key part in making sure that it was shared with a wider audience. Marissa, thanks for your dedication to child passenger safety and for helping bring Jennifer's story to the forefront today. And now I'm honored to introduce Jennifer, a mother who has been deeply affected by the importance of occupant protection. She's here today to share her personal experience, and we're grateful to have her with us. Jennifer and Marissa, I'll turn it over to both of you.
Thank you, Tara, for the introduction. Before we get started, I just wanted to say how incredibly proud of Jennifer I am for being willing to tell such a personal and impactful story. As Tara mentioned, I am a CPST. When Jennifer reached out to me for help sharing her and her daughter's story, she didn't realize that I had the background in passenger safety. I know Jennifer and her family personally. We are from a small town, and so stories like this impact us so deeply, and I think it's so important to share it with the wider audience. Jennifer, knowing that I had a background in public health and that I now work at Sanford Health, she hoped that I could connect her with the right people to share her and Morgan's story and highlight the importance of proper car seat use and buckling up every single trip, every single time. The story that you are about to hear from Jennifer will be one that stays with you. It's the kind of story you carry into classrooms, your communities, and your conversations. In our fields, whether it's education, law enforcement, prevention, healthcare, or car seat safety, we often rely heavily on data and statistics to show our impact. But behind every number is a person, a story, and a family. Morgan did everything right. She prioritized her children's safety, ensuring proper car seat installation, and followed the guidance that we as CPSTs work so hard to share. I want to take a final moment to again honor Jennifer's bravery. Today, she shares not only a story, but a legacy. Let her words inspire you. Let Morgan's memory be a reason to do better, to teach better, and to help others stay safe.
Oh, sorry. Morgan would always say, be brave. She would tell everybody, be brave. I'm not being very brave. On June 3rd, 2024 was the last time I got to hear her heartbeat. That morning, she was at her house and she was packing up the kids and herself to go home. And I walked them out to their truck. We made sure everybody was buckled in. Morgan had to run into the house quick and get their waters for on the way home. And when she came back out, the kids, I said, don't cry, you're coming right back on Thursday. Little did I know. I gave Morgan the biggest hug and a kiss. And she said, oh, Mom. And I said, well, I love you very, very much. She went around the side of the truck and she flipped her arm up and she said, let my favorite season begin, because it's summer and she loved to be outside. She got in the truck and she went. I came back in the house and about 20 minutes later, my phone made the most ungodful sound. And it said, Morgan's phone has detected an accident. I've never heard this, never seen it. I got in my car with my husband. It pinpoints it. I went north. And as I was going north, I was saying, dear God, don't let that be my Morgan. Don't let that be my Morgan and the girls. And the black smoke appeared. And we pulled up to the accident and I got out of the car and I started to walk and I saw her in the ditch out of the vehicle. She was buckled. The girls were buckled. And there was firemen all the way around her. And I thought, she's good. The firemen are taking care of her. And the main man on the scene said, what is a yaya? We need to find a yaya. I'm yaya, not grandma. They took me back into the ambulance where the girls were still buckled in their car seats in the ambulance. The oldest, who was 4 at the time, she looked at me and she said, Yeah. Mama, not hear me. Mama, ears broke. And I looked at her and I said, I'm here, honey, now. It's okay. It's okay. I will go get Mama. And she said, no, Mama's dead. I'll never forget it. From a 4-year-old. I jumped out of the ambulance and I ran down into the ditch like any mother would. And it clawed at the ground. And I yelled at them and I said, do something. Save her. She was gone on impact. I went back up to the ambulance where the girls, you guys, they're still in those car seats. They were buckled correctly. And it saved their lives. When we got to the ambulance, or we got to the hospital, and they took them out of the car seats, and I kid you not when I tell you this, there was not a mark on one of those girls. There was a little bit from the car seat marks, not a mark. We buried my daughter. We didn't bury my 3 granddaughters because they were buckled correctly. And it is just so important to know this and to do it. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. It doesn't matter if you're gonna go a block. It doesn't matter if you're gonna go a mile, 10 miles, 100 miles, whatever you're going to do. Buckle every time. She was only 10 miles from home when this accident happened. Nothing brings Morgan back, but I'm hoping that anybody, even if it's one person, hears this message. I see it far too often where people don't buckle. I'm just running uptown or whatever. Buckle your children. Those 3 girls are with us today because their mama took time and took her brain and installed them correctly. And I still have my 3 grandbabies. And I hope you all remember this. And I thank you all for all the work that you do and encourage all the moms and dads and grandpas to buckle up their kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing your deeply moving and powerful story. Your courage to speak out is inspiring, and it reminds us all of why we do the work that we do. As we just heard, vehicle crashes can lead to serious injury or death, even when all occupants are properly restrained. But stories like Morgan's also fuel our commitment to preventing these tragedies and protecting families across the state. This is where the Minnesota Occupant Protection Program plays an important role. The program's work is driven by stories like Morgan's, which guide and motivate our efforts to improve occupant safety in every vehicle on the road. The work we do focuses on preventing injuries and fatalities through education and providing resources and support. Our program is funded by a grant through the Minnesota Department of Public Safety's Office of Traffic Safety, and the Minnesota Safety Council serves as the grant recipient and coordinating agency. We strive to ensure that we have a coordinated approach across the state for occupant protection. So now let's take a closer look at how restraints keep everyone safe when traveling on our roadways. Despite strong laws and ongoing efforts, too many lives are lost each year because someone wasn't buckled up. Vehicle crashes are a leading cause of death for children and adults. Every ride matters, as Jennifer told us. Here's a look at the unbelted motorist fatalities over the past 4 years in Minnesota. In 2024, preliminary numbers show that we lost 108 lives. In 2023, 81 lives. In 2022, 87 lives. And in 2021, 110 lives, many of whom may have been saved if they would have just simply buckled up. Well, the trend had been decreasing. The rise in 2024 reminds us how important our work is. But there is some good news. Minnesota's seatbelt usage rate had reached a near all-time high of 94.7% last year in 2024. This was the highest that we've seen in a decade. So our efforts are working. We just need to keep going and know that there is still work to be done. The numbers speak for themselves. Unbelted fatalities remain far too common, even as the seatbelt use increases. So why does buckling up make such a difference? To understand the life-saving power of restraints, it helps to know what happens during a crash. A crash happens in 3 different stages, each with potentially serious consequences for the people inside the vehicle. The first stage is the vehicle crash. Whether it's a front end, a rear end, side impact, rollover, or some other type of crash, the vehicle strikes something and begins to crush and deform. Speed is reduced and the vehicle eventually comes to a stop. The second stage, the human crash, is what happens to the occupants that were inside that vehicle. Even though the vehicle has stopped, the people inside, they keep moving at that pre-crash speed until they hit something, whether the interior of the car, an airbag, or if they were restrained, the seatbelt or a harness if they're in a car seat. The third stage happens inside the body, the internal crash. Internal organs continue moving until they collide with bones or other organs, potentially causing internal injuries or bleeding. Crash outcomes depend on many factors: the vehicle size, the speed the vehicle or the vehicles were traveling, the type of the impact, and whether or not those occupants were restrained. And as we saw in Morgan's story, sometimes even properly restrained occupants may not survive, but wearing a seatbelt always gives you a better chance. So now that we've looked at what happens during a crash, the forces at play and the damage that can occur, let's talk about how restraint systems help protect us. Seatbelts, harnesses, and car seats are designed to manage those crash forces in very specific ways to reduce serious injuries and to save lives. We know that restraint systems can help mitigate injury by managing those crash forces. They're designed to do 5 things. These 5 things help to prevent injury and death. First, we want to try to keep the occupants in the vehicle. You're 4 times more likely to die if you're ejected during a crash, but staying inside the vehicle dramatically improves survival. Next, we want to direct crash forces to the strongest parts of the body, like the shoulders and the hips. Restraint should make contact with those areas to better absorb and distribute the force. Then we want to spread the crash forces across a larger area of the body so they're not concentrated all in one area. This helps to reduce the severity of injury. Next, those restraints help to protect the head, neck, and spine. These critical areas are difficult to repair if they're injured, so we want to emphasize protecting them, especially for young children, and I'll talk about this more later. And finally, we want to ride down the crash. This means that it's helping to slow the body down gradually. By increasing the stopping time, we reduce the amount of crash force the body will experience. Seatbelts are the most effective way to protect adults in a crash. When worn properly, they do exactly what we just talked about. They keep you in the vehicle because we know being ejected greatly increases your risk of death. They distribute those crash forces to those strong parts of your body across the shoulder and over your hip bones, and they help slow your body down with the vehicle, reducing the crash forces acting on you. But proper positioning really matters. If you don't have your seatbelt on correctly, it's not going to do its job. The lap belt should lie low across your hips and not rub up over your soft stomach. That can cause really severe internal damage to your organs. And the shoulder belt should lay flat across your chest and be away from your neck. If it's on your soft neck, it can cause damage to that area of your body too. This correct placement helps to manage the crash forces and reduces the risk of serious internal injuries. Here's a really important concept. Children are not just small adults. Their bodies are still developing. And one of the biggest differences is their head to body ratio. So to show you what I mean by that, let's try a little demo together. So hold your arms up above your head. Do you see how much space is between your head and your arms? You have a lot of space there. But if you imagine a baby or a toddler doing that same thing, they can barely get their arms up and around their heads. Why is that? It's because their heads are proportionally much bigger compared to the rest of their body. So here's a picture of an adult or older person doing that, like I just did. And then with a young child, they can barely have their arms even touch at the top of their head because their head is so much bigger proportionally to the rest of their body. And this is a great demonstration of that too, as to how that changes as you progress and get larger as an adult. So baby's head makes up about 25% of their total body length compared to only about 6% in an adult. That means that during a crash, a child's head carries a lot more momentum and their neck and spine are they're more vulnerable to injury. Their bodies are softer, their ligaments are looser, and they just aren't built to withstand those crash forces the way adults are. That's why adult seatbelts aren't safe for young children. They don't fit right, they don't provide the correct protection that a child needs. And this is exactly why we have specially designed car seats that account for a child's weight and their height. Car seats are designed to protect children based on their size and their development. Rear-facing seats, like this little kiddo on the left-hand side that you see in the red shirt, that rear-facing seat helps to protect his head, neck, and spine because these areas are still really fragile in children. The most severe crash you get into is a head-on collision. So by facing them rear-facing, you're more able to protect those parts of their body, that head, neck, and spine, because the car seat is designed to absorb those crash forces away from them and it cradles them. Where once you turn and go forward facing, like the girl on the right-hand side, can put a lot of stress on that spinal cord with that whiplash effect that adults would have if they are also forward facing in the vehicle. So really, it would be much safer if everybody rear faced in vehicles, but that's just not practical in the way that vehicles are designed. So with forward facing seats with that harness, those can still spread those crash forces away from the strongest and distribute them across the strongest parts of their body and keep children securely in place. So since she's a bigger kid now, and her head is more proportional as she gets bigger to the rest of her body, she's able to take that impact a little bit more. But that's why rear facing is so much safer for younger children until they're at least 2 and up even longer until they're closer to 4 or 5 years old. That's really common in a lot of European countries that children stay rear facing for several years. A lot of people get really concerned about lower extremities, such as this little kiddo's legs here. You can see his feet are touching the back of that vehicle seat, but he looks completely comfortable. He's sitting cross-legged here. He'll put his feet up on the back of the seat. It's not a concern because we really want to protect his head, neck, and spine because those parts of his body are just not as easy to repair. So is this kiddo ready for a seatbelt? sometimes we hear, my kid's too big for a car seat, or they're 6 years old now. They don't need a booster. They're big for their age. But let's look at what can happen without one. This photo is showing you how the seatbelt is not sitting the best on this child. So you can tell from this area here with his shoulder belt that it's cutting across his neck and touching the side of his face. That is not good placement. The lap belt also looks quite high, and it's likely on his soft stomach and not over his lower hip bones or upper thigh area. In a crash, that can cause really serious abdominal injuries. And that shoulder belt, if it's placed there on his neck, it can cause really bad neck injuries too. And for children that aren't in proper booster seats, it may cause a phenomenon called submarining, where they slip out underneath of that lower lap belt. So booster seats can help get a better fit. So this is what we don't want to see. As kids grow, they'll outgrow that forward-facing seat with the harness, though, that we saw previously with that little girl, but they're not quite big enough for a seatbelt to fit safely, as we saw in the last photo. That's where booster seats come in. So booster seats help to literally boost a child up so that the adult seatbelt fits them the way that it's designed to, across their chest and their hip bones. So you can see in this photo that there is a guide placement here where that seatbelt could fit into on the booster if needed. It's not in there currently, and that this is boosting him up so that it's going over his hip bones across his upper thighs. And that looks like a much better fit with a booster seat. So with a booster, the child gets the same sort of protection as an adult wearing a properly fitted seatbelt. Booster seats are a critical step in keeping kids safe until they're really ready for that adult seatbelt. So now we understand why there are different car seats, directions that the car seats face based on a child's age, and why we need booster seats. That critical gap to protect them in between having that harness before they're ready to just sit on the seat alone like an adult. They need that booster to boost them up. So that raises another question. When's the right time to move from stage to stage, and who gives us that information? So that's where expert guidance comes in. So the American Academy of Pediatrics has been giving us recommendations on how to use car seats, either rear facing, forward facing, or booster seats for a really long time. In November of 2018, they updated their car seat safety guidelines to emphasize something that we already knew from research. Children should ride rear facing as long as possible, not until just age 2, which is what the American Academy of Pediatrics had recommended prior to this new guidance in 2018. So this is a major shift, and it reflects that rear facing is significantly safer. And like you've heard me say a bunch of times already, it helps to protect that head, neck, and spine in a crash. Child passenger safety has evolved a lot over the last several decades, but even today, motor vehicle crashes remain as one of the leading causes of death for children 4 and older. And that's why they've outlined 5 evidence-based best practices to help keep children safe from birth through adolescence. So their first recommendation when they came out with this in 2018 was, again, to rear face as long as possible. All infants and toddlers should ride in that car seat until they have maxed it out in either the weight limit or the height limit as deemed by that car seat manufacturer. So on the side of the car seat, there are usually labels, and those have what those weight or height limits are, and you need to go up until the max of those. And that's their recommendation. Then after they've reached either the height or weight limit of that rear-facing car seat, then you can position into a forward-facing seat with the harness until the seat has outgrown again by that weight or height limit as deemed by the car seat manufacturer. And then booster seats until the adult seatbelt fits properly. And you'll know that based on the 5-step test. And then finally, back seat until age 13. And here's another key point, that every time you transition from one stage to the next, so from rear facing to forward facing, from that harness to a booster seat, from that booster to just the adult seatbelt, it reduces protection. So if you can delay each step for as long as you can, but still within that car seat manufacturer's recommendations for the weight or height limit, that's best practice. And that's what the American Academy came out with in 2018. So what does that mean for our state? So what does Minnesota law actually say? So this was a big change last year. Director Mike Hansen from the Office of Traffic Safety testified before the Minnesota Senate Transportation Committee and helped lawmakers understand why this change was so important. Testimony and strong support from the Office of Traffic Safety helped to put this legislation in front of legislators to make a change within our state law. Previously, our state law simply stated that children needed to be restrained if they were under age 8 or under 4'9". But great news is that the legislators liked what Mike Hansen said, and so they passed this bill in the legislative session of 2024, and it officially took effect on August 1st of 2024. So our law changed, and it brings our state in line with the American Academy of Pediatrics best practice recommendations. The change aligns with policy that we know is safest. It gives parents and caregivers and professionals the legal support to help keep children safer longer, which we know helps to prevent injury and to save lives. So this is an overview about how our law looks now. So again, it's everything pretty much in line with what the American Academy of Pediatrics had suggested. So rear facing in that infant seat or a bucket seat or rear facing only seat like this one in the picture that's blue. And then you can transition to a convertible car seat that still keeps that child rear facing, but will convert to forward facing when they're ready for it and have outgrown it. And then after they've outgrown that harness, to a booster. And then once they can pass that 5-step test and they're at least 9 years old, then they can sit in that adult seatbelt. On the right-hand side here, this is the 5-step test. So this is what you can do to know when a child can ride safely without a booster seat. And once a child is able to do all 5 steps of this test, then they're ready for that adult seatbelt. And this is written into our legislation. So the passage of this law made headlines across the state. From TV to newspapers to social media, we saw widespread attention, and with good reason, because this law impacts all families across Minnesota. And it wasn't just about changing the rules, it was about doing what's right to protect our children. As you can see, there's no shortage of important stories and reminders about child passenger safety, and that's why we want to make sure that you know where to go for reliable Minnesota-specific information. So let's take a moment to talk about our updated resource hub called buckleupminnesota.org. This is our new website, and that QR code will take you to it if you would like to take a visit onto the website. The website launched earlier this year, and it's packed with everything you need to help make sure everyone in the vehicle is safely and correctly restrained every trip, every time. Whether you're a parent, a caregiver, a child passenger safety technician, or just someone who wants to brush up on your seatbelt, car seat, or booster seat knowledge, you'll find resources like legal guidance, how-to videos, different installation tips on car seats, printable fact sheets, and places to find a child passenger safety technician if you have questions about your specific car seat or booster seat. A large portion of the site does focus on child passenger safety, selecting the right car seat, understanding that updated law, and again, finding help if you need it from a car seat tech. There's also a password protected section that's specific to our child passenger safety technicians in the state. We have over 800 of them. So there are different helpful tools for them and materials, as well as opportunities to apply for grants. Throughout the site, we've also integrated one-pagers on a variety of different topics, like understanding the law, heat stroke prevention, winter safety, off-road vehicle safety, and more. These are great for printing, sharing, and referencing when talking to families or for your own use as a family with small children, or if you have questions on how your seatbelt should fit you. So if you haven't taken a look, I invite you to check out our new website. And it's an easy way to stay up to date, find answers, and ensure that everyone in your vehicle is riding safely. So here's one of the pages from the site that I took some screenshots of. And even with the best intentions, we know that car seat installation can be really confusing. And that's why we've made it a priority on the site to make it easy to connect with certified experts across Minnesota. So from the Get My Car Seat Check section, you'll see two options under Child Passenger Safety Technicians. And you can either locate a child passenger safety technician, and that's an interactive map that'll open up like this one here of Minnesota. And you can either click directly on the county that you live in, or you can scroll on the page alphabetically by county to find a certified child passenger safety technician near you. And it's a great tool for setting up one-on-one appointments in your area. Otherwise, we do have the option to find an upcoming event, a car seat checkup event. And this page features a statewide list of upcoming events hosted by local partners throughout the year. Generally, those are different healthcare organizations that might have a focus on injury prevention, such as Regions Hospital, Wisconnet, or North Memorial Health or Children's Hospital, or St. Cloud has some options, the Duluth area, and up by Jasmine in Northwest Minnesota. There's also some options up there too. One of the issues we also highlight on the website, and something we tend to talk a lot about this time of year, is preventing heat stroke. So even on cooler days, a vehicle can become dangerously hot in just a few minutes. Child passenger safety isn't just about car seats and booster seats. It's about protecting kids from all vehicle-related dangers. And one of the most tragic and preventable is vehicular heat stroke. Each year in the United States, an average of 38 children die from being left in hot cars, and every one of these deaths is preventable. That's why NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, designates May 1st through the end of September as heat stroke prevention season on its communication calendar. We know that a child's body heats up 3 to 5 times faster than an adult's, and cracking a window in your vehicle just doesn't cut it. Temperatures inside a car can rise by 20 degrees in just under 10 minutes, even on a mild, cooler day. So we encourage families and caregivers to remember the ACT approach. That acronym stands for Avoid, Create, and Take Action. So to avoid heat stroke, you want to never leave a child alone in a vehicle, not even for a minute. And you want to help create reminders. If your routine is changing, where maybe you're doing drop off for daycare, but you don't usually, maybe your partner does, you want to put something in the back seat that you're going to have to get out at your destination. So whether that's your phone or a purse or maybe even a shoe, so that you have to go into that back seat to ensure that you check before you lock up and go into your final destination. And then finally, take action. If you're out and about at a store or somewhere and you see a child alone in a vehicle, you might need to take action and try to break into that vehicle or call 911 immediately. The QR code on the screen, that'll take you straight to the Hot Cars page on the buckleupminnesota.org website, where you'll find tips and downloadable resources. And like I mentioned, we're building out some of those one-pagers on the website with different key safety topics. The heat stroke one should be posted very soon, if it's not already up there. Another risk that we're seeing more and more of are counterfeit car seats. seats that might look legitimate, but they don't meet the United States federal safety standards that NHTSA puts into place. These often show up online and they can pose serious risks in the event of a crash. So let's talk a little bit more about what to watch for. So like I mentioned, it's a growing concern for expectant parents or caregivers shopping online. Counterfeit seats, they're often sold at some pretty hefty discounts. So if the deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. And these car seats often lack critical safety features. So they may not have even been crash tested at all. They often miss important parts. They might not have a chest clip. And like I said, there's no guarantee that they'll protect a child in a crash. And it can be really difficult to determine what is a legitimate car seat versus what is a counterfeit or fake car seat, because they do a really good job of making them look like real ones. But there are some clear warning signs that you can look out for. So on the screen here, you can see this is a label from one of the car seat manufacturers that they put on their car seat. There are very distinct requirements for car seats in the United States that they have to have very specific labeling with very specific verbiage. And oftentimes you will see a label that says that the seat meets the FMVSS 213, and that's the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard. And that is the regulation that ensures that car seats meet those strict crash protection and safety criteria that NHTSA puts into place. You'll also find that there should be information on those labels about the manufacturer's name, that manufacturer's contact information, and you should be able to find an expiration date somewhere, either on the label on the car seat itself or in the owner's manual. You also want to make sure that for seats in the United States that they have a properly placed chest clip on the harness. The label should also be clearly written in English without any spelling or grammar mistakes. That's really common to see with fake or counterfeit car seats, is that they have major spelling errors, or they might have limited words on the seat and put more pictures, and that's also a red flag to watch out for. Sometimes they will have other languages such as Spanish, and also I believe French if the seat is also sold in Canada. So sometimes they'll have other languages too, but mostly they have to have English. So if you have questions on this, it's usually a good idea to talk to a child passenger safety technician to help you determine if that seat is legitimate or not. It also helps if you buy from trusted retailers or directly from car seat manufacturers' websites, and to avoid any third-party marketplace where those counterfeit products can show up. Amazon will sell car seats, but you want to be careful about who the seller is. If it's from that manufacturer specifically, that's generally fine, but you want to watch out for names that you haven't heard of, or check the reviews, things like that. I was just on Amazon recently and I was able to order a counterfeit seat because I purposely was trying to. And since that time, that seat's been taken down because Amazon does a really good job if you end up reporting that seat. And if you looked closely at the description of the car seat, it actually said it was a pet stroller, and it said nothing about that it was a car seat that was crash tested or anything. And they're trying to provide a lot of words there for you to have a hard time to look through it and sell it as something and try to trick you almost. But Amazon is one of the retailers that's good about helping shut that down if those are popping up on their website. It's also important to remember that not all questionable seats are counterfeit. It might just mean that they're non-compliant. So they might be real products that meet safety standards, but in other countries, just not in the United States. These might have fewer words and illustrations. They might match different literacy levels or languages in the country where they are legitimate. So it's important to help decipher that too. So even if it's not compliant here, it might be safe to use in a different country. And one of those things is with that chest clip. A lot of times in European countries, they don't have that piece, but in seats sold in the United States, they will always have that chest clip. And when you're talking with caregivers about this, it's important to be mindful about your language that you choose. So many families, they have the best intention to try to protect their child and their child's safety when they're traveling in vehicles. And so be careful about saying that it's a fake car seat because it might come off as judgmental. So approach that conversation with care and support. Counterfeit seats are one example of many challenges that caregivers face when trying to keep their children safe. And that's why child passenger safety technicians are so important. They're trained to spot unsafe seats, to guide families through any confusion that they might have, and to make sure that every child is riding as safely as possible. If you're passionate about helping others and want to be part of the solution, becoming a child passenger safety technician might be the perfect next step. They can help families install seats and show them how to do that and give them that knowledge and skill so that they can replicate that on their own. Our job is not to install the seat for people, but to help encourage the family and give them those skills that they need so that they can do it when they need to. We also often are referencing those owner's manuals that come with the seats, highly encouraging families to check that owner's manual. If it's the only owner's manual that you read in your life, that's a good first step. I know sometimes owner's manuals are not the funnest thing to read, but there's a ton of information in there, and you really need to pay close attention to the rules that the car seat manufacturer has put in those owner's manuals so that you're using the car seat or the booster seat correctly. As a child passenger safety technician, you'll learn how to install car seats and booster seats. You'll learn how to educate caregivers about car seat safety. You'll learn how to check for recalls that sometimes happen on car seats. If caregivers are frequently seeing an issue with their seat, it's recommended that you report that. And then that's how those recalls are issued. If multiple families end up reporting that, there's maybe something wrong, and then that manufacturer needs to provide a fix for that. And that happens on occasion where there's a recall issued. And usually it's something simple that can be sent out, or sometimes you have to replace that whole seat, unfortunately. We also learn how to do proper fit for children, learning about the harnessing, which position it needs to be in for the child, changes based on the direction they're facing with rear facing and forward facing, and then how to spot misuse and correct that for families to make sure their children are riding as safely as possible. We also can connect families with other safety resources and reminders, such as keeping kids safe outside of the vehicle too. The certification course, it includes classroom instruction for about 3 days. And as you heard earlier with our CPS liaisons, they're out busy this week doing some of those child passenger safety tech courses. And after you've done the classroom instruction with hands-on practice, generally are doing a mix of both in the classroom, learning with a book, and then also frequently going out to the vehicle to practice the skills that you're learning in different stations and with different partners or others who are in the class, so that you get a lot of really great hands-on experience. And then at the end of that 3 days that you're learning and practicing your skills, then at the end, there's usually a car seat check event where you're working with real caregivers in a real case scenario so that you can practice everything that you've learned the last few days and then put it into practice. And as a car seat tech, you're constantly learning. So I've been a car seat tech for over 10 years, and I'm still learning more and more every time that I go to a car seat check event. We also have this really large book called a latch manual that we frequently reference at car seat check events. And that has information about all different car seat manufacturers and different vehicle manufacturers. So it's kind of marrying those two together so that we can make sure that we're abiding by both the car seat manufacturer as well as that vehicle manufacturer and how they've been tested together. And that's a really important step too. And once you're certified, if you decide to do that, you'll be part of a network of other child passenger safety advocates working to help protect children on every ride. This is a national certification, so it's good in all states in the United States. And then if you want to learn more about this, you can visit the Safe Kids Worldwide website at cert.safekids.org that I have there on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. You'll be able to find different courses that are available throughout the state, information about your certification and other upcoming trainings. And once you're a child passenger safety technician, there is an option to become either a proxy or an instructor like Sheila or Randy and Jasmine are. And here's that map again. So again, I'm the statewide community programs and occupant protection manager. And our child passenger safety liaisons who you met earlier, Jasmine, Randy, Sheila, and Shawnette, that is our contact information. And we're here to help. So please reach out to us if you have questions or opportunities to work together and partner. And as we transition to the question and answer portion of the webinar, we'd like to remind everybody to fill out our evaluation survey. So if you've scanned this QR code, I believe Linda from the Center for Transportation Studies will also be putting a link in the chat box. So if you don't want to scan that with your phone, you can also click that link and I will open it up for any questions at this time.
Kara, there was a question in the chat box about hot car PDFs.
Are you able to read the question for me, Linda? There's
Yeah,
quite a
they
few.
said that, sure, the PDFs were not available yet on the Buckle Up website. Are they
Yep.
on there? We just can't find them?
That one I just pushed over to our website developer, so they might still be in the works for getting it posted, but it should be there soon if they can't find it.
Also, Tara, are there CPS CEUs for today's webinar available?
We do not have CUs available for today's webinar. Every month, on the first Thursday of every month, we do have CEU opportunities sometimes available. We try to do a good mix between offering CEUs and maybe having a different speaker. So on the Buckle Up Minnesota website, if they're a child passenger safety technician in our state, they can find more information about those webinars coming up.
And Tara, there was another question from Danielle Anderson in the chat box. And she said, what can a driver do to properly place a seatbelt away from the neck?
So sometimes, especially on newer vehicles, on that column next to you, there's sometimes an adjustment that you can make. So that would be the easiest way is to look in your vehicle to see if you can slide that up and down so that you can get that to sit off of your neck. Shawnette, do you have something else to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to encourage folks to look at carfit.org, which I put in the chat, but that's car-fit.org. That is a program where folks are trained as technicians to help adult drivers fit better in their vehicle. It's a 12-point inspection. So it covers not only the adjustment of that shoulder belt, if that is possible, but also things like how far are you from the steering wheel? What's a safe distance? Maybe adjusting just that will help with the seatbelt fit. Will your seat come up or go down? How is your seat back positioned? Where is your head restraint positioned? All of those things can impact the fit of that seatbelt on the adult driver. And one other thing I wanted to point out with the Buckle Up in MN.org website is there's a good resource on the pregnant driver and how to properly fit a seatbelt as safely as we can over those expectant moms.
I'll just add to that too, Shauna, that's a good reminder, is we're frequently seeing too with pregnant people, these add-on devices that strap onto your vehicle seat commonly in between your legs when you're sitting on that seat. And it's pulling away that lower lap belt, and any extra products like that, those have not been crash tested. That's essentially just a piece of plastic, and that can cause really bad injury. So you don't want to add anything if you are expecting a baby to remove that lower lap belt off of that area. You want it still to be underneath your belly over your hip bones. You don't want to like pull it completely in between your legs. And I think at Regions Hospital, you guys are seeing those a lot. Is that true, Shawnette?
Interestingly, I have not yet seen that, but what I do see is improper placement of that lap belt on pregnant folks, but also just improper placement of the lap portion of the belt on any adult driver I have seen in many cases. So it's just a really good reminder to use the safety device that comes with your vehicle. That's what it's intended. And whenever we add on an aftermarket product, we're introducing something that we don't know will work properly, appropriately, or cause additional injury.
Yeah, thanks, Shauna. That's a great reminder. A couple other questions that have come in are if you can hand down a child safety seat from one child to another, and as long as that seat hasn't been in a vehicle crash and it's still within that car seat manufacturer's lifespan, as in it's not expired and the parts are all working and there, it should be fine to hand it down from one child to another. The place where you want to be careful is if you are getting it from a different party or somebody that you don't know and you can't trust necessarily if that car seat has or hasn't been in a crash. If you don't know that person and you don't trust them, then you probably don't want to use that car seat. Another question is if people are able to get their money back if they purchased a fake or counterfeit seat. And I would recommend reaching out to that retailer where you got it, or you can try to contact your credit card company to see if you can get a refund on that. And if you need the password to access the child passenger safety technician pages on the Buckle Up Minnesota website, feel free to give me an email. You also should have received emails from me a few times already this year with information about how to access that password and type that in for that section. And we can add in to the chat box a link to the pregnant section on the website too. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in. So a reminder to everybody to please fill out the evaluation survey, either with the link that Linda put in the chat or by scanning the QR code that's on your screen currently. One other question is if there is a new law in Minnesota about the age of children when they can sit in the front seat. And yes, that was also changed with that updated legislation that went into place on August 1st, that children have to be 13 years old now in Minnesota before they can ride in the front seat. Previously, that was just a recommendation, but now that's also part of that law.
Tara, may I add one other thing to that piece?
Yes, please do.
One of the caveats in the law is if there is a seat available, we do recognize that there are families that have more children than they have backseat vehicle seats. And so it's certainly law to keep children under the age of 13 in a backseat if there is one available.
Yes, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up too, Shawnette. Yes, if other child passenger safety technician instructors from another state want to check out our password protected section, I'm happy to share that info with you. So you can either go on the website and request a password or feel free to send me an email and I can get that to you. All right, so again, a special thank you to Jennifer for sharing her story, for Marissa for helping to bring that to the forefront to share it with a wider audience, and to our child passenger safety liaisons, and for everyone who joined us today for the webinar. We hope you learned something new and feel more empowered to support safe travel for every occupant in every single seating position in every vehicle every time. We encourage you to follow the Minnesota Towards Zero Death program on social media, including Twitter and Facebook. I guess it's called X now, not Twitter. And to stay updated with our latest news and resources on the website, minnesotatzd.org. And as a reminder to everybody, buckle up every trip, every time, front seat and back seat. Thanks so much for joining.